Welcome back to the channel. I'm Mr. Carnage, and today on Tech Time, we're going to talk about mid-grade motherboards for under $100 that are definitely good for gaming and won't break your wallet. These boards do have advantages and disadvantages, and we do have 5 of them to go over. So when building a gaming rig, what I like to do is first pick what's important to me. Obviously the CPU, what memory I'm going to use, and I want to kind of gauge how much storage I plan on having. So I normally never pick a motherboard first because I want my other things or features on that board. And then in the past, I tend to pick a board and then have to choose a different one just because it didn't have some of the things that I originally wanted. And people tend to spend more money than they need to on a board simply for things like RGB, or if it has cool looking armor or decals, and sometimes you spend as much as $30 to $60 more just for those decals and RGB, and it offers absolutely no real performance boost over a board that'll run you 70 or 80 bucks. If RGB is important to you, remember, you can always get that in your case, on your RAM, even on your graphics card and AIO. So having it on your motherboard, in my opinion, should never be a factor to spend more money for when I can get RGB other ways and still make my gaming PC look really cool. Other things to consider, obviously, is the chipset, the south bridge, and even if the PCB has armor or is reinforced, as a flimsy board can crack or break. Trust me, I've seen it, it's a horrible thing. Once you start putting a heavy GPU and a heatsink on it, very, very, very heavy peripherals on that board could definitely crack it, and that's just a sad thing. Now, you also want to look for things like, does it have more than one USB plug on it? Because some cases have as much as 3 or 4, and does it have more than 2 or 3 SATA ports? And a big one right now is, does it have integrated graphics, since there is a shortage on GPUs. Some of those boards I chose on this list, and all the things on this list basically has good reviews, high scores, and definitely is in stock at multiple retailers. Now, some of them you can even buy as much as 10 of them at once. Now, some boards I did like better, but unfortunately they've been discontinued or is normally always out of stock. Most mid-grade boards are a B450 chipset. Some are better than others in the B450 range. But let's go ahead and go over these boards. Now the first board is the Gigabyte B450MDS3H version 2. It does have integrated graphics, and you can normally get this board between $70 and $89 at most retailers. It does support all class of AMD Ryzen CPUs. It does have a 3rd gen BIOS. Unfortunately, it only has one M2 slot, which is Gen 3, but it does have, mid-grade armor PCB, so it's not going to break on you. And it's a decent chipset for Gigabyte. It's not flashy, but it'll get the job done and should save you some money on that build. The second board is the ASRock B450 Steel Legend AM4. Now this board's actually the only board on this entire list that has RGB. Unfortunately, the board though only supports 2nd gen Ryzen processors. It does, however, have 2 PCIe slots, so it is crossfire ready. But unfortunately, also it has one M2 slot, and that's Gen 3. Now this board normally falls for an RGB board in that price range. Normally you can find this board between $80 and $95 at most retailers. The chipset is decent, but the BIOS is kind of like last gen, so it is missing on some of the key features of some of the newer gen boards and processors that just won't have any updates in the future to support any kind of newer processors. So again, you're give or take with the RGB, if that's important to you and you want to spend a little less money than most RGB boards, that might be the board to go with. The third board on the list is the ASRock B450M Pro 4 game version 2. Now this board also falls in that range. It's normally between $75 and $85. However, this board has two M2 slots, Gen 3. It is crossfire ready. It does have a 3rd gen BIOS. It does support all Ryzen CPUs, and including future ones with BIOS update. It has a decent reinforced PCB with Under Armour, and the chipset is decent because it does have ASRock CPU boost tech. So for an $80 board, definitely not the worst board you can buy, especially since it has crossfire ready and it has two M2 slots for decent storage. It has 6 SATA spots, so storage should definitely not be a problem. The 4th board on this list is the Asus TUF B450M Pro Gaming. This board has recently been marked down. It used to be $119. It's now, you can find it between $85 and $95. This also comes with two M2 slots. However, one is Gen 3 and the other is the new Gen 4. It does support all Ryzen and future Ryzen CPUs. Supports top tier DDR4 RAM. It does have integrated graphics for both Athlon and Ryzen with Vega. Crossfire ready. Does have a Gen 3 BIOS. This board is reinforced PCB with tough armor across the board. This thing, I mean, I don't know if you could actually break this board or not. It's so reinforced with armor all across the board. And in fact, I think it came in 3rd as the best board on the market for tension testing, which is, you know, if it's something that you're worried about, there you go. Now, it does also have the CPU boost, and the chipset on it is pretty nice, and it is the only board on this list that has two onboard RGB controllers. Now, board 5, this is probably my favorite board, is the MSI Pro B450A Pro Max. This board also has been recently marked down. You can get this board between $70 and $90. Unfortunately, again, it only has one M2 slot, but it definitely has the integrated graphics for both Ryzen and Athlon Vega. Crossfire ready. It does support all Ryzen CPUs and future Ryzen CPUs, a Gen 3 BIOS, flash BIOS button, the DDR4 boost, the core boost, has reinforced PCB with steel armor, and it has scalable graphics performance. So that's my favorite board out of the mid-grade boards. Again, most chipsets on all of these are going to be the B450. So it's kind of a little bit older, but again, if you're building a PC right now, gaming wise, between the GPU shortage and price of parts going up, the motherboard is one of those things that I think you can get away with buying in the mid-range, because expensive motherboards, while they do offer some newer features, most of them have two M2 slots, you know, things like that. It's just not worth spending so much money on a motherboard when all you're getting off of it is cool decals and RGB. So those are, in my opinion, the best mid-range budget gamer boards you can get right now. All of them have great reviews, all perform very well for being a mid-grade board. Right now, getting one that has integrated graphics may be the best way to go until the GPU shortage ends, as some are good enough to play high-end games and will definitely get you by in a pinch while you hunt down that RTX 3070 or RX 6700 XT. And as always, you guys are the best, and please hit like and subscribe. I love seeing all the new faces around here, and we will catch you all on the next one.